Hello, Clive Edwards. It's wonderful to have you here today on UK Column to speak about what you do and your wonderful website, Capillary Wave. And now I know you because you've been involved in the local area that I'm in and been helping people and councils and all sorts of things. And I've been over to your land, which is amazing what you're doing there. You've literally built yourself an amazing fortress where you're walking your talk. You're doing you're living your life out of the system, which has got to be commended. And I just wanted to ask you, you say that your platform came out of your sort of legal entanglements, with your local council, and then a broader study of law and governance. Could you briefly sort of tell us about that journey and how you got to where you are, and what was the turning point where you realised you were operating in one jurisdiction rather than another?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you, Sandi. Lovely to see you, and thanks for thanks for inviting me on the UK column. It's great to be here. So, as you say, I came into stark conflict's a strong word, but I guess perhaps it was conflict with the state. They came and knocked on my door one day, head of planning enforcement. I was putting up a fence on a field I've got where I store some building materials. I used to run a construction company down in Somerset. And then the head of planning enforcement turned up one day with his clipboard and said, "Clive, you've got to stop what you're doing." And I've used the analogy before, but my life was bombing along at 100 mile an hour in the fast lane, and all of a sudden the council came knocking and pulled the handbrake up, and I went into a tailspin. And so basically what this meant was it was threatening the very existence of my building company. And I was probably about 35 at the time. I was just about to get married. My life was just about sort of taking off, if you know what I mean. And then the council turned up, and basically what they were asking me to do would have, to cease the storing of building materials at my field. Would have meant I'd have had to go and hire a yard. I think it would have put me out of business. This was around 2007-8 when the recession was biting really hard for those in the construction industry. So it was tough enough as it was. Then I had the council. Well, actually, I had the joint forces of the local council and then HMRC came knocking. So that brought me headfirst into an indictable offence. Now, I don't know if your audience know, or I didn't know what an indictable offence was at the time, but it's with planning enforcement, it's an unlimited fine, and indictable means you could be sent to prison for it. So, and it can end up in Crown Court. So it was fairly serious. I didn't know at the time how serious it was, but it was a serious situation.
Gosh. And so, on your website, you distinguish between legal and lawful. How do you define those two terms, and what are the practical consequences for an individual who's unaware of that distinction?
Yeah, well, this is crucial, Sandi. Finding out this distinction between legal and lawful was the key to success in me, because I ultimately defeated the council went away. They didn't want to tangle with me anymore, because in the end I came to understand the system of law and governance really well. And it got to a stage where I was able to pull their rules and show them with their rules why they should leave me alone. And I think that's the point of ultimate success, when you can show your adversary their own rules as to why they have to leave you alone, which we'll get onto, I'm sure, in this discussion. Yeah. That's when now, because that doesn't require their belief in what I'm telling them. I'm able to use their own laws, which they understand, to point out, the boundaries of their jurisdiction. So for me, when the council came knocking, I was in a tailspin. I felt someone dropped me in the middle of the sea and nobody knew if I could swim. So I started just to do, treading water a bit, just to keep my neck above the water. And I started by looking at the council's enforcement policies, because I thought, well, how on earth can this guy I've never ever met before in my life, how can he just turn up and put an end to my life as I saw it at the time? So I thought I'd start by looking at their enforcement policies, and I did that, and that was fairly useful. But the actual bit of gold that I found, Sandi, which maybe a lot of people aren't aware, but every council has got what's called a constitution. Now, this is a really, really important document. And in that constitution, I started reading that constitution. And so I'll just park that there a minute, because you asked about legal and lawful. So the legal system, let's talk about, I sent you some a couple of photographs. I don't know if you're able to put them on the screen, but...
Oh, right. I don't know whether I can do that right now. Yeah, there was a bit of a confusion this morning about... I couldn't get those through, but I know that, is it the two banners that you had at the talk I saw you do the other day? That's right.
Yeah, I do a few talks, and my talks are available online. And so the United Kingdom. Now, this is something that actually not enough people understand. The United Kingdom is what is known at law. It's a body politic. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a political body. It's a political structure. It doesn't exist in reality. So it's just in terms of law and governance, it's what's known as a legal fiction. So if you, for instance, if your audience was to go to Wikipedia and search for United Kingdom, what Wikipedia will offer them is a picture of a Union Jack and some heraldry. And you're able to click a button and you'll hear the national anthem. Now, it's not able to show you what the United Kingdom is, because it's a political construct. It doesn't exist in reality. And I often say at my talks, I offer free tickets for an all-inclusive family holiday to Yugoslavia. Just come and collect them. And
no such place exists anymore.
Exactly. Yugoslavia, that political construct no longer exists. The landmass exists, just like the landmass of the British Isles is a real and tangible thing. But the company, the corporate entity that operates out of it, United Kingdom, is not a tangible, real thing. So that's what a country is. And so I started scratching my head and I started thinking, well, how can these state actors, where do they get their authority from? Like, where does the council gain their authority to turn up in my life and put an end to my life as I saw it? My means of earning money for my family. I was just about to get married. As I say, like, how did this happen? So I started looking at the main actors in state and saw, what they did and where they gained their authority from. So that led me to the monarch's coronation. And they bring out the Bible. But the Bible is very prevalent in the monarch's coronation. And then I found
in the monarch's coronation, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I'll get on to the two jurisdictions of state in a minute. Where I'll break it down throughout state.
Yeah.
So in the monarch's coronation, anyone that's seen it, the Bible is very prevalent in that service. And then I also found out that judges every year they mark the start of the legal year. There's such a thing as that's called a legal year. And they mark the start of that legal year. All the judiciary, all the top people in of the judiciary in the legal system meet at Westminster Abbey and they sing praise to God and have prayers and it's a very big ceremony. So that sort of got me thinking. It's like, well, God's involved in law and governance somewhere along it. So, God's seriously involved here in law and governance. And then I found out that in the House of Commons, every single day in the House of Commons, they have a prayer session before Parliament opens.
Yeah. They're not very godly, though, are they?
No, well, we'll get into that because the legal system, the legal system's run on civil law. And civil law means is secularly organised. And the definition of secular means lacking in ethics and morality and a belief in God. That is the definition of secular.
Yeah. And we live at the moment under a secular sort of legal system, don't we?
Absolutely.
So it is actually a godless, rather,
Yes, and I'll get on to explain why. So what the legal system do is mimic the lawful system. Now, this took me about 15 years to find out. Oh. So it was a very long and arduous process where I trawled through all their policies, their acts, and the Bible, and I had to do so forensically at times. And so I came to find out that how the legal system works is they copy and mimic the lawful system. It's just a mirror image of it. So on the lawful side, you've got God, our Father who art in heaven, and then on the legal side, I don't know how many people are aware, but King Charles has got one of his titles is Father of the Nation. So when I found that, I thought, that's interesting. I wonder who the mother is. So on the Bible, on the biblical side, the mother is Christ's church. Like, we're the living stones of Christ's church. So the followers of Christ are actually Christ's church. But Christ's church is known as Mother Church. So I thought, well, who's the mother on the legal side? Since they're just copying and mirroring everything. So on the legal side, they've got the Church of England is known as Mother Church. And this is where it now starts to get really important, because we'll bring it down to councils and things in a moment about my particular fight. So on God's side, on the Bible side, we're what's known as children of God, just in simple terms. And on the legal side, we're what's known as, like, the king's the father, the church is the mother, and we're infants, wards of the state. So that's what we're viewed as, and that's what we become when we subject ourselves to an earthly king. And
is that why certain areas are called wards, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, and yes, and it's no coincidence that when you're dealing in elections, you elect someone from a ward of a district.
That's right.
And you became so when we get involved in the voting system, is when you have to enroll on the electoral register. Now that when you enroll on the electoral register, that then places you as a subject of the king, in short terms. So you become, and that breaks the first commandment, because in the first commandment it says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," and in that commandment it's a small g God, and the Strong's Concordance of that small g God is earthly kings, judges, and rulers. So that was very interesting to me, that the voting process makes you, if you like, it breaks the first commandment. And God says in the Bible, "Call no man on earth your father, because there is one Father in heaven." And of course, so when you enroll on the electoral register and become a subject of an earthly king, he then becomes your father. That's why he gets to make the rules, and you become an infant of the state.
Yeah. So in fact, this when you've got the two jurisdictions, you've got God's law, and you've got this secular legal system that has kind of been overlaid on the top of God's law, because God's law was there in the beginning. Is that what you're saying? And then this was kind of brought in over the top to kind of trounce it.
I wouldn't say it's brought in over the top, because they put it right there before us. It's right under our noses. Yeah. But it's in the hierarchy. It sits below God's law, if you like. There's God in the biblical system, because they all go to in their ceremonies and worship God. And we then subjected ourselves to the king, and they worship God.
So I'm playing devil's advocate here. So you're saying it's a two-tiered jurisdiction, basically, and you've got two different factions, but they kind of merge together for show, for theatre, for whatever it is. But underneath it all, they are godless. Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to get my head around this.
Yeah, no. So the hierarchy is the legal system is a derivative of the biblical lawful system, because everyone's heard of what's legal and what's lawful, but very few actually understand what lawful actually means. Lawful it's referring to the Bible and that doctrine. So the legal system is, look, body politics are run on civil law, and civil law is Roman law, which is why the king at his coronation dons an imperial crown. Imperial means Roman. But at his coronation he dons two crowns, and those two crowns of office reflect the two jurisdictions. So he puts on a crown of St. Edward's crown, which is known as the crown of God. And that reflects the jurisdiction under God. And he also, in the same coronation, puts on an imperial crown, and that is the Roman crown, reflecting his office of state, where he rules over the subjects.
So is it that he's serving two masters in that respect?
Yeah, he astrides the two jurisdictions, because in Romans 13:1 it says the powers that be are ordained by God. So if you like, God said, for those that turn their back on me, i.e. break the first commandment, and go and subject themselves to an earthly king, which we're told not to. For those that do that, you can go over there and he will govern you. And that's why they're allowed to. That's why they're allowed to beat you up, because you've broke the first commandment. Now that the king's two crowns of office are reflected at judges level as well. So judges swear two oaths. One oath is to the office of the United Kingdom, and that office there, and the other oath is, now these oaths take diligent and forensic reading, okay, but the other oath is is to do with the jurisdiction under God. And there's maxims of law that says judges judge for God, and there's another one that says it's punishment enough for a judge to know that he's judged by God. So,
well, I wasn't aware of that, because from what I've looked at, and I don't want to in any way disagree with you in this respect, but I was under the assumption that judges rather, swear their oath to the king.
Yeah, that's right. They swear one oath to the office of United Kingdom, which is under the king. So that's correct.
Well, I thought it was only that. I didn't I'm from what I'm aware of, they don't swear to God.
Yeah, well, the other oath is under the jurisdiction. I'll just say it like that: under the jurisdiction of God. So, because the king astrides two jurisdictions. So judges, if there wasn't two jurisdictions, judges wouldn't need to swear two oaths. And this rolls down at the police level. That's why a police officer is also a police constable. So the police constable swears an oath to protect the people. Now the people are on God's side.
That's something I do want to get straight, because you talk about people and persons, and people are living souls under God's law, and persons are legal fictions under legislative control. So it sounds a bit strawmanny and free man on the land, which I must admit I keep right away from. But
yeah, so do I. Okay. Yeah, just on that point, I've got an article that explains and denounces the free man on the land position, because that's a fallacy. That's going to go nowhere. But persons are mentioned in the Bible, and there's many places it says if you have respect of persons, you've transgressed the law and sinned. And it says that's at James 2:9, I think it is, and at Job 32:21 it says, "Have no respect of man's person, or don't accept man's title, or my Maker will surely take me away." So persons are mentioned throughout the Bible, and in 99% of the cases, it's a very bad thing to be. So
a person,
yes,
a person is really under the jurisdiction of the legislative.
That's right. And that's why, and that's exactly why it's bad in the eyes of God, because you broke to be a person of the state, you would have had to break the first commandment: have no other gods before me. So you'll only become a person when you subject yourself to an earthly king. Which is why, going back to the constables, those two jurisdictions again, a police officer, like the clues in the title of that's for the office of the state of United Kingdom. And a police constable swears an oath to protect people and property. So that's on on God. So it's an oath on this side, because an oath is a pledge to a deity. It's higher than mankind. So that's the oath side and under God.
Okay, I'm because obviously our viewers, are looking at all this, going, "Oh my goodness, this is a bit of a." It really scrambles your brain, doesn't it?
It does.
So tell me, I mean, the reason why I've steered very clear of ever interviewing anyone from any kind of common law thing is because everybody argues about their system is right, you're wrong. Every single one of them, and that it really puts you off. I mean, it puts me off.
I agree.
What is different about your system? Tell me, what wins have you actually managed to, and for other people as well?
I'll tell you exactly what's different about what I talk about, because it's the very fact that it's not my system.
Yeah,
it's not. It's nothing to do with Clive Edwards. I just had to find out this is the system. This is a paradigm, is a model. It's a system, and what what I'm explaining now, explain on my website, is the paradigm, is the model. And I found out these two jurisdictions go from the king to judges to the police right down to local councils. And we'll get onto that, I'm sure, in a bit. Amended District Council, I'll show you their evidence, their constitution, where it breaks the difference between the people of God and the persons in the electorate of the state. Believe it or not, it's in your local council's constitution.
Yeah, would that work? Because Mendip doesn't exist anymore. They've gone unitary and they've...
That's right. They're now Somerset Council, I believe, isn't it?
It would be it's Somerset now. Would it be the same?
So I've got members at Capillary Way from all over Britain, and so we're building up a library of councils' constitutions. So there's a constitution at Basingstoke. I did send you through the photograph for
I'm sorry,
your audience. I've got it on my.
That we can put those in the show notes. I'll be able to put them in the show notes. So
fantastic.
You'll see your two banners and everything else in the show notes. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you like, I'll read out Basingstoke's an excerpt from Basingstoke's council, because this is relevant. Because I had to, when I found this out, is when Mendip started to leave me alone on my for the planning issue, and that's when I went on to build a farm. And as you said, you visited my farm, Sandi, and seen it with your own eyes. So.
Yeah.
And that was many years ago that I had this battle with Mendip. It's long in the dust now. But so the two jurisdictions of state, from the king to the judges to police, and now this is at local council level, where it talks about the people of God. It doesn't say people of God, obviously. It just says people, and then it talks about the electorate and council taxpayers. So in Gravesend Borough Council's constitution, it says, allow local people to have a real and informed say about the issues that affect them. So local people, the councils are accountable to people, but they're not accountable to the electorate, the subjects of the king. So at the very next line, it says this: explain to electors and council taxpayers the reasons for particular policies and priorities. So the council explains the policies to their electorate, because if you're one of the electorate, you're what's known as a commoner. And a commoner is a member of the third estate of the realm. A commoner is the lowest position at law you can be, whereas one of the people is the highest position at law you can be. So when I started to find this stuff out and started mentioning this to Mendip District Council, they backed off of me big time. I said I'm one of the people.
What did that look like, the backing off? How did that present?
Well, so let's just paint the picture. I mean, I had police turning up here, enforcement officers. I'm talking, this is years of, probably 3, 4, 5 years of, let's call it, discussions with Mendip Council that involved enforcement officers and the police. Now, I didn't know a lot of this at the time. They were just treating me as one of the electorate, one of their commoners. And when I started to understand this and find this out, I started writing to the Section 151 officer. And they are responsible to make sure the council doesn't operate ultra vires, which means beyond the law. It's the Section 151 officer's job to make sure. Now, it will say in their constitution to operate legally and lawfully. It says it in their own constitution. So it evidences these two jurisdictions that we're talking about today in their own constitution. And it's the Section 1...
Sorry, I just, because they operate legally and lawfully, so they use both sides of this thing, because you've got God's law and then you've got the legal system. The legal system.
Yes, that's correct.
They use both. It's a melding of the two.
No, it's not a melding. They have citizens of the state to look after, and then they're accountable to the people under God. They're accountable to me. But they're not accountable to their own citizens, because as a citizen, you consented to be governed. You pledged that you make yourself a subject. So it's a matter of choice, which you decide you're going to be governed by. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's familiar with that phrase, consent of the governed. Yeah. And we do have a choice. So how do you get yourself out of the matrix then? What do you have to do? Right, that's a really good question. So, right, the word "atorn" means to turn away from one lord and go and serve another. There's only two jurisdictions. As mankind on planet Earth, there's only ever two things you can be under. You can be under man or God. That's it. And that's the situation at Britain here. You can be under man in the United Kingdom, under the jurisdiction of the secular legal system, or you can be under God on the British Isles, which is what I did. So the word attorn means to turn away from one lord to go and serve another lord. And that's why there's a general in charge of all the attorneys, the Attorney General. So I wrote to the Attorney General and explained to him some of this. And then I rescinded my consent to have that name, that legal name, on the electoral register. So that's the first thing, because if I had in my mind that the council was very likely going to take me to court over this planning thing, because in the end I wrote to the local council and told them that I was going to build a house on this field, and if they had any objections, let me know. But they never wrote back to me, and I've gone ahead and built a farm, as you know. And the reason they've left me alone and not they refused to take me to court. I've written in 3 or 4 letters to them over the years asking them to take me to court. Now, Mendip got an expert in planning law from South Wales to come and prosecute me, and especially for my case. I know that because I asked him. And when he got the job, I asked for a meeting with him, which I did at Mendip District Council's offices. We had a meeting. I asked him a few things. I said, have I got a right to a private life? He said, yes. I said, can the council force themselves to be my authority? He said, no. We've got that choice. A council is just a...
You didn't have to.
No, that's right. They can't we got freedom of choice. A council and a local authority are different things. A council becomes a local authority when you submit yourself, when you're a subject of the king. You then become one of their electorate. But I'm one of the people under God, so they're not my local authority, but they are a council, and they're accountable to me now. Their own constitution states that. So, right. So I also asked their planning expert if it's illegal not to have planning permission, and he said no, it's not, and I knew it wasn't. I asked him these questions because I knew the answer. Now, we've got a right to a private life, and a private life is under God. Because everything under the UK system is in common. That's why we have the House of Commons. We have people play on the common land. Exactly that. They play on the commons. That's why there's a commonwealth. It's owned commonly. But they say you've got a right to a private life, and so I started pointing these things out. And it was at that point their planning expert said to me, "Clive, we're not going to take you to court."
What? Because you knew where you stood, and they knew where you stood.
Precisely, Sandi, yeah. And this is what I'm saying, because as you said, you refer to the common law and the straw man stuff. That's a lot of nonsense. And then you said, what about my system? And that's my point. This isn't my system. I just pointed out what their rules say, because it's the system, it's their system. This is the system of law and governance.
Now, I find this absolutely fascinating, and this is why I kind of wanted you on. I know I've been to your land, and you have literally built it so that it's impenetrable. So not many people can do that. If they buy a field and they want to, put structures on it and live on the land the way that you do, some people haven't got the means to build great big walls and electric gates and what have you. So would it work for them? Is that one reason why they're not, or is it because you have come out of the matrix and they know it? Or is it because you're such a fortress?
I knew, so just on the fortress part, I knew, listen, when I started doing this, I knew I was running headlong into a battle with the state. Yeah. So like any good general, you have to get your defences in order first. So I put a boundary wall up because I made it difficult for them to just walk in. I needed them to go and get a court warrant. Yeah. Or so to get into my place, you either have to be invited in or you need court paperwork. So I made it hard for the council to just walk in, because they will just walk in, okay? So that's that point. But yeah, the main point is because I understood the two jurisdictions of man and God, legal and lawful, and I rescinded my consent to be governed on the legal side. I took the name off of the electoral register. So now when I tell them I'm a people under God, I'm not lying. Because it's no good claiming to be a people under God if the legal name, because the electoral register is evidence of your consent to be governed under the legal system. It's written evidence of it. So, John, to your point, yeah, any people can do what I've done. I'm not saying it's easy, because like me, most citizens have been walking around on the government-run duck farm for 20, 30, 40 years. So the government think, well, hang on, you're one of our ducks. You've been waddling and quacking like one of our ducks. What are you doing? Telling us you're a swan?
Yeah.
And when you make these distinctions, and see, what I do is point it out in their own laws, Sandi. I find this stuff in their constitution, in the council's constitution.
Yeah.
It's there before our nose, but it's taken me 15 years to piece it all together.
Yeah, I mean, you've been writing about how the governments drive their power through our consent, often without realising it. So what forms of hidden consent are most people giving, and how do they withdraw or transform from that consent, apart from saying, I'm not going to be on the electoral register, go to the Attorney General and say, I'm not going to, I'm going to turn away from you. What other things can one do to transform that consent to actually really get yourself out of the system? Yeah.
So one of the, obviously being on the electoral register is the main evidence of your consent to the UK legal system. Now it's no coincidence. The electoral register is a bit like the school register. That our tutors, twice a day, morning and afternoon. Sandi Adams, yes, miss. Well, the electoral register is very similar. They get when you're called up for jury service, they get the names off the electoral register, and this is important. As is war conscription. They get those names off the electoral register, and that's very relevant right now, I think. So. On smaller scales, I said to you that a council and a local authority are different things at law, and they are. So a council becomes a local authority. In my instance, had I applied for planning permission, then I would have effectively been signing up to the terms and conditions of the Town and Country Planning Act. Because the planning permission is basically an agreement. I give them money, they send a guy out to make sure I'm building it to the standards of the Town and Country Planning Act and the terms and conditions of that act, and that's a contractual relationship. So they can only issue an enforcement notice under two circumstances. One is contractual, i.e. I pay them money for an extension or a house, and they give me permission, and then I build it, and then they send someone out and say, yes, you've built it to the agreement. So, and if you don't build it to the agreement, you'll find yourself in court. The other way they can enforce against their citizens, or people actually, is if you've caused a harm, i.e. a slurry tank bursts and there's slurry emptying into a river, killing all the fish, damaging farmland down the river. Now, that's harm. So they'll come out and jump on you in a heartbeat. And so they should. So enforcement can only be issued under two circumstances. One is contractual, when a council then becomes an authority at your consent, and the other is through harm.
Yeah. I mean, what I've noticed really about the way you operate and the way other people operate within the common law, if you like, arena, is that you work very much as an individual. And, could this be your world, your kind of, could it be a fantasy world that you've built up? How can you prove to me that this is something that you are living by, apart from the fact that you've built all these amazing structures? Have you had successes outside of your, helping people, for instance, with council stuff or getting their own planning permission? Have you helped anyone else that? Yeah.
So when the council came at me all those years ago, I didn't know anything. I thought, crikey, I need to get some court experience. All right. So I then went on to a planning forum. I'm going to get to your point in a minute, but I have to give you a bit of backstory. So then I went on to a planning forum and started talking about these topics on the planning forum. And I said, you don't need planning permission. And this planning forum was populated by professionals in the planning field, solicitors and planning advisors and farmers and smallholders. So there's a wide selection of society. So when I went on there and explained to them you don't need planning permission, the whole forum erupted, and I was able to answer all the questions in a commonsensical way, and I soon started to attract. Like, I would then have farmers come to me saying, "Clive, I'm in court on Wednesday. Can you come and help me?" So then I would go and help these farmers, and I went all around Britain doing that for a few years. I still do it now occasionally. So, but back then, because I knew I needed court experience, so I thought, right, I'll use. The council didn't want to take me to court, so I thought I'll use other people's cases to gain my court experience, because that was an area I needed to get experience in. So that's what I did. I went all around Britain, Cumbria down to Cornwall. And to your point, whilst I was doing that, a mutual friend contacted me from the guy who built a castle behind hay bales down in Redhill, down in Surrey. You may remember it was the biggest planning case in the United Kingdom at the time. A guy called Mr. Fiddler, Mr. Robert Fiddler, built a castle. That's right. He built a castle, hid it behind hay bales. And then, anyway, ended up in the High Court in London. And so it turns out we had a mutual friend who contacted me, and Rob wanted me to keep him out of prison because he had a committal hearing at the High Court in London. So Rob contacted me, said, "Can you keep me out of prison?" I said, "We'll give it a go." We went to court. It's well documented. The BBC were there. It was a very, very high-profile case. And at the end, friends of mine said to me, how will we know if you're successful, Clive? I said, if Rob Fiddler walks out of me on the court steps after this case, then it's a success. I don't care what the BBC say. And sure enough, Rob was with me on the court steps afterwards.
And so they didn't send him to jail, but they did pull his castle down.
Yes, yeah, they made him take his castle down. Yeah. Okay,
that's kind of a win, but yeah.
I got called in to keep him out of prison because he had a committal.
Oh well, that's good. Yeah.
Reigate and Banstead had a committal hearing, so it was turn up and be sent down. But we kept him out of the jaws of the dragon.
So is it? I mean, what did you use to stop him from going into court to prison?
Well, we used a couple of tactics, some of which are things that we've explained here and I explained on my website. Another means was because we had evidence that Reigate and Banstead Council used blackmail in that case. So we opened up a case for blackmail that morning. I think it might have been that morning. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. But we opened up a case for blackmail against the council. The council solicitor. I don't want to open up a massive can of worms, but the council solicitor blackmailed. There was blackmail. We had evidence of it. This is not just we had evidence of it. So we opened up a case for blackmail in the High Court, and we made the judge aware of that. So a judge, bearing in mind, so this judge in Rob's case had Rob and the council in front of him, and at the same time now, that judge has also got a case not in front of him, I might add, a case that had been opened, but we let him know there's a case for blackmail had been opened against the council. So the judge in this case has knowledge of the fact that if he sends Rob down, that could be an unsafe conviction because there's a case in the High Court now for blackmail against the very council that are trying to get Rob sent down.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is that it's all so complicated because, what would you say to there's a lot of people out there who are looking at this in different ways. And they all argue. What would you say? Why would you say your system is working and theirs possibly isn't? Or do you not look at anybody else's work?
I don't tend to look at anyone else's work, Sandy. I'm obviously aware of the other arguments that are out there. So again, it works because it's not my system. That's why it works. It works because it's not Clive Edwards' system. It works because that's the very foundations, the pillars of what the United Kingdom is built upon. The king himself dons 2 crowns. The Bible states that the powers that be are ordained of God. So these things are the fundamental principles that govern the Commonwealth countries, and I would argue the countries of the world, but certainly the Commonwealth countries. And all of the Acts of Parliament, talk about God and talk of Lord's spiritual, Lord's common. Now, there's a So I'll also mention another Act of Parliament called the Confession of Faith Ratification Act, 1560. Now, that Act of Parliament states that the Bible's the infallible truth. And the Bible states not to subject yourself to a king, an earthly king. So we've clearly got two systems, evidence just from the fact that the legal system says God and the Bible are the truth, and God and the Bible says don't submit yourself to that system.
So it's really down to, do you believe in God, or are you secular? Because that's
massive. That's huge, Sandy. Yeah, because listen, I was going to come on today and the question I was going to pose to your audience is, do you believe in freedom? What does freedom mean to your audience? Do they believe they're free? Now, I would struggle to believe that many of them would put their hand up and say, yes, I'm free. Certainly not in these times we're under. Now, I've freed myself from the state. Now, that's a bold statement to make, but that's true. I mean, what's the definition of freedom? I don't know what the definition is, but I'll tell you what it looks like. I built a farm without asking the government for permission to do so. That means I'm completely free of their jurisdiction. None of their taxes apply to me. Obviously, we all pay taxes in some way. When I go and fill the car up at the petrol station, I'm paying VAT. You can't escape some, but I don't pay income tax. I don't pay any of these tax. It says in the Bible it's unlawful to pay tax. So I've removed myself from the jurisdiction. So I'm free. It says in the Bible that Jesus' yoke is a light yoke. So you're right to point out the fact, I feel sorry for atheists because they can never attain freedom they can't. It's impossible. They'll always be under man.
This kind of story of the duality that we're living in is bringing a lot of people back to what are my core beliefs. You know, when you've got a corrupt system and you've got, you know, the world actually descending into chaos, people are beginning to question what, you know, who is in charge? What is there a battle going on between, you know, a fundamental good and evil? And I think a lot of people are seeing that. So your work often connects the scripture and the spiritual law to earthly governance. Do you see natural law as literally divine, an expression of God's order? If so, how does that challenge the secular legal system then? So
Sandy, I'm just an ordinary guy, okay? Like I say, I'm a carpenter by trade, and for me, like, A plus B has to equal C. Or I often make the joke, obviously in carpentry terms, if you're cutting rafters, it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So listen, natural law, that doesn't mean anything to me. I can't get where can I go and evidence it? I need evidence. To free myself from the state, I need to point at their paperwork and rules that they accept to be true. Evidence. I need to show the council evidence. So natural law means nothing to me. Not to me. So, but I'll tell you, there's an Act of Parliament, as I've said, that says the Bible is the infallible truth. So I wouldn't have gone so far as to say I was an atheist. That would have been a hard line that I wouldn't have crossed. But, like, don't talk to me about the Bible 15 years ago. I wasn't interested. But my enemies, the state, say that book's true. So I thought I'd best go and have a look at it. So when I talk about God and God's law and that doctrine of the lawful doctrine, I talk about what the Bible talks about. And now, because I can go there, just like you can go to an Act of Parliament and quote Section 2, Clause A, I can go to Job 32:22 and quote that, and they understand it. They've authorised a version of the Bible called the King James Version 1611. The Crown have said, if you want to talk to us about the Bible, you can use that one. So I did. And when I started quoting that book at that council, they ran a mile.
That's really interesting. Now, which council was that? That was Mendip in those days, was it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And of course, since then, I've learnt a heck of a lot since my early days of Mendip. And since then, I help people now because, listen, if you get these arguments right, you don't need to go to court. They won't take me to court. I mean, I've asked them. And I know why they won't take me to court, because I'm one of the people. And if judges judge for God, and it's punishment enough for a judge that he's he's judged by God. Why on earth would they want one of God's in his courtroom? Sat under a crest that says God am I right. All these judges in the Crown Courts sit under a crest with a lion and a unicorn. It says Dieu est mon droit. It's French and it means God am I right. So God's in the courtrooms.
Right. So they're using this to really lure people into their jurisdiction in a way, or is it that they I'm trying to work it out really. How?
Yeah.
I've noticed that an awful lot of people who are doing this common law work do end up in courts and they fail because they're not.
I don't know if you're. Yeah, I don't know if you're confusing what I do with common law, because I've written an article called "The Common Law Trap for Commoners," where I denounce common law, because the clue's in the title. Common law is for the commoners, and commoners are subject to the king. The Bible is what's known as the royal law. So I follow the royal law, where you're not even allowed to tell a lie, and the commoners, the subjects of King Charles, they're under common law in the Commonwealth.
Ah, so it's not common law; it's God's law.
I follow God. Yeah, the royal law. That's what I follow.
Royal
Absolutely. Law. Yeah.
Okay, and so, I mean, critics could argue that, is it natural law, or is it natural law or God's law?
Sandi? You tell me? What does natural law mean? You tell me. What does that mean?
Well, it's the law of nature, of God's creation.
Can I? What section can I go and quote to keep the council off my back when they want to bulldoze my farm? Can you give me a section? Can you give me a? Do you know what I mean? Do you see my point? That's why I don't know what natural law means, but I know what the Bible is. I know that's God's word. I know that's his instruction of how mankind should live their life and how they should be on this earth. So I go there and quote that because I can. Natural law to me, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
And natural law, if you get 10 people in a room, natural law might mean 10 different things to those 10 different people. But the Bible means the same thing to it. The Bible is an infallible truth.
Right. I find this fascinating because all your critics come from, and there have been, you did an interview with lovely Rachel the other day, and I've seen the barrage of, from people like, I don't know, people that have said this is, your things like the People Act governs the right to vote and all this kind of thing. So how would you stand up to people that are doing the whole natural law or common law? Because you've got different factions. You've got the straw man, the free man on the land. That's common law, isn't it? And that always fails.
I believe so. I can't speak to what others are doing. I can only speak to what I'm doing. So what I've done is built a farm. I've wrote a letter to the head of Mendip District Council, told him beforehand that I was going to do so. They sent the police and enforcement round for a few years. We've had a chat. They sent a planning law expert to have a meeting with me. We had a chat. They went away and I'm still building my farm. So... these people talking about other things. And I can evidence it. My whole website is evidence-based. So
I've looked at your website. It is amazing. And I think what we've got to really drill it down to is you're saying you have a choice. You can either be in that system or you can be in this system. And this system you're free. In this system you're not free. Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing I've never said it's easy.
No.
I've never said it's easy, but it can be done. Now, I would say that because, look, when I brought these discussions to Mendip District Council, I'm not sure they've ever had any one of the people come forward before and make the arguments that I've made. I don't know for sure, but from their reaction, I don't think that they've had these discussions before and this argument put to them. But they did go away. I would say, like, the proof's in the pudding. I would say I had to keep myself out of prison because it was I had 9 planning enforcement notices against me, and each one's an indictable offence. So that means each one, if they beat you on 1 or 2, that means I've still got 6, 7 or 8 still to go, and each one can send you to prison. So it was a very serious situation that I was in. But I managed to navigate my way through it using the Bible and using the some of the things that I talk about in my website. And so, yeah, I don't, like I say, it's not my system. It's the system that King Charles advocates. And it's a system that the legislation, the UK Acts of Parliament point to, and they defer to. So it's the system that society itself is built upon.
So what are you saying? That, sorry, I missed that. Prince Charles, you advocate his system, or you don't?
No, sorry, I said King Charles advocates that the Bible's the infallible truth.
Right.
He has wears a crown of office, the St. Edward's crown, that reflects the jurisdiction of God. And so I just aligned myself with the highest position at law that I could be in, that being one of God's people under the doctrines of the Bible.
So let's just go through, at the coronation. He went. Is it St. Edmund or St. Edward's crown? It's
a St. Edward's crown. Yeah.
Edward's crown.
Yeah.
And why does he don? Because that's the conduit to God, is it? Is that?
It's called the crown. It's known as the crown of God. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So the other crown is the imperial crown, and imperial means Roman.
Yeah.
And that's the crown of state.
So is that so that you have this choice? It's your free will to choose God or the Roman statutory level.
Yeah, that's why all these main states of office swear oaths. Oaths are to a deity, to something higher than mankind.
Yeah.
So all of these main states of office swear oaths, and the oaths, again, point to something higher than mankind.
Right. Well, it's an absolute... this is really getting to the nitty gritty of it, because what I love about you is that you actually, you're not listening to all the other noise. You're just doing your thing, and it's working. And I
couldn't listen to the other noise, Sandi, because no one else is going to help me if I go to prison. I could only rely on, that's what I mean when I say that's why it's so important to me. Evidence is key. If you don't have evidence, you don't have an argument. So for me, I was like blindfolded in the dark, and I was feeling around like, what on earth is this system of law and governance? So when I found a hard bit of evidence, I hung on to it. And I was able to...
What do you make of the whole birth certificate thing, when you're born? Because that, again, is a bit free man on the land, isn't it? The whole your birth certificate makes you, a legal fiction sort of thing. Do you go along with that?
The birth certificate, a birth certificate, for a start, is not called a birth certificate. It's called a certified copy of an entry. So that's what the document itself says. And on the bottom of that document, it says... warning, not to be used as evidence of identity.
That's true. It says that on your birth certificate, doesn't it? Yeah.
So that name on that certificate is evidence of a what's known as a legal name. But that legal name is clearly not your identity. It's not your name, because it says on the bottom, don't use it as your identity. And a name is a key identifier. So it evidences... a legal construct. It's evidence of a title that allows you to do business in the United Kingdom. Because we're to be in, like Jesus said, you're to be in the world, but not of the world. Right? So, as one of the people, you still have to interact with the world, with the secular. You still have, there's a bank account. You need a bank account in today's society. So to get a bank account, you need a birth certificate. And that's all that is. It's a tool to enable God's people to use a bank account. But the bank account's not my bank account. And the name on the birth certificate's not my name. It says so on their own document.
So to a degree, you have to play that in order to actually function. You have to use that system a little bit.
To be in the world, but not of it, as Jesus said. Yeah. Yes. And Mary and Joseph took Jesus to be taxed. It says in the Bible to be taxed. And if you look at the Strong's Concordance of the word taxed, it's registered. So even Jesus was registered.
He was, wasn't he? Because they went miles to do it, didn't they? Yes.
So there you go.
That's Roman. That's Roman law.
Yeah, that's exactly imperial crown, Roman crown. Yeah,
the Romans were at it then, 2,000 years, over 2,000 years ago, and they haven't stopped.
No,
by the sound of it.
Very true. Yeah.
if for instance, you opt out of statutory law, could it be that if everyone did this, would it result in chaos? I mean, do you envision a moral and orderly society operating under God's law? Because this is all very individualistic. So if everyone did this individually, would it operate under God's law without any kind of centralized government? How would this work in your imagined wonderful utopia of everyone following this? How would it be? What would it look like?
Yeah, it's not my imagined utopia. It's what God commands.
Sorry, yes.
So it's not individualistic because I'm just following Christ and the word of God.
Yeah.
So we're called to be members of the body of Christ, not members of the body of Parliament.
Yeah.
So I'm a member of the body of Christ. So if you leave the world, the secular world, which we've already said is immoral, lacks ethics, and is godless, I'll take the other one, thanks. I'll take the godly one with Christ as at the helm rather than Keir Starmer. I think I know where my moralities lay, if you know what I mean. So yeah, and it's not the only one you got to follow is Christ. So it's not an individualistic thing. It's already been done for us. And it's called the royal law. So you can abide by the common law with the commoners, where you can lie, cheat, and all of that involved in secular life, which is immoral and lacking in ethics. Or you can walk back to your father under the royal law, and obviously there you're not allowed to tell lies, cheat, or steal. But the yoke is lighter, as Jesus said.
Yeah, do you know, there's so much about this that absolutely I understand and I realise. And I mean, do you think it is down to? I mean, certainly looking at some of the critics that have gone against you. Only this morning, I just found this whole sort of thing, and I thought, is it because people don't like you talking about God and Jesus, do they? Is that? Do you think it's their innate kind of we're not having this? This is It
may be, Sandy, that there may be something in that, and there's also that tall poppy syndrome thing, isn't it? I don't know. I've only come on the internet in the last 2 years because I could see where that things were getting extremely serious. Now, I consider myself free of the state. So I'm sat on my little farm in Somerset looking at the news and looking at everything that's going on thinking, well, I've got some of these answers that some of these citizens might need to hear. So I thought, I'll stick my head above the parapet. I'll shout as loud as I can for as long as I can. And that's why I'm on the internet now, and I'm quite happy to go back to my farm in Somerset. But I don't believe I'm called to do that. I believe now is the time. Yeah. I believe now is the time for people to stand up. And yeah, it takes a certain character to be able to do that. And I'm not really worried about I'm not really worried about commentators who have got no skin in the game. I risk my freedom, and a lot of these commentators are anonymous. Well, I'm not anonymous, and I've risked everything.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. I respect your conviction and your faith and everything. I absolutely 100% respect that. And I think it's difficult when you have got a lot of people saying a lot of conflicting things. And I've seen people, as I said, going into their jurisdiction, into the secular courts, and losing, and you won't even step into that. You're just kind of saying, right, I'm doing this, I'm doing the other thing, and you've got a lot of strength and courage to do that. Yeah.
Well, I thought I was going to have to go to court. I thought that was part of the process, where you may have to go before a secular judge that judges for God, and you get judged in this realm by an earthly judge. But as it's turned out, because I've come to understand this system extremely well. To a very good degree, whereby, like I said, I can evidence everything I talk about. So they don't even want me in their courts anymore. That's the situation I'm at. Now, I'm not saying I don't know. At some point I may have to go to court. I don't know, but it doesn't concern me. I'm not worried about it because I understand how the law works. And if one of those judges are sat under an emblem that says God and my right, and I know that judge in front of me, as there's a maxim of law that says it's punishment enough for a judge to know that he's judged by God, then I know his soul's on the line when he's talking to one of God's. Is he really going to harm one of God's? I think it's Matthew 18:6 that says, "Don't you offend one of my little ones, or it'd be better for you if you had a millstone around your neck and you were at the bottom of the sea." Now, a judge understands the system extremely well, and he will understand that quote very well. So why on earth, if I was a judge, I would not want one of the people who understood how the system works to this degree in front of me, risking my soul for the next part of our journey. This earthly realm is irrelevant. It's what we do here that reflects as we go on, in my opinion, anyway.
No. I kind of get that completely. This has been a fantastic conversation. I mean, because we're drawing to an hour, and we can just go over a little bit. But what if you've got anything now that you want to say to the UK column audience here? What would it be? Your final sort of message, really, that you'd like to talk about?
Thank you, Sandi. Yeah, firstly, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on and pressing the questions as you have done and as you should do, because people, you should never take anyone's word for anything. You should go and research it yourself, and if people do want to look further, I've put a lot of this together in one place at my website. So what I would say is, what I talk about, this legal system, the system is not commonly understood, Sandi. It's frighteningly. It frightens me how little the citizenry understand about how they are governed. And so what I would say is, look, we're entering into very serious times. Digital ID, you know full well, I've seen your work, I know what you talk about. It's serious. We know what the farmers are going through. We know what the government are trying to do to the farmers and the food supply. We're in serious times. That's why I've come out of the woodwork and started explaining this stuff. It's not something I'm terribly comfortable with. I'm quite a private guy, but I feel these times it requires people to stand up and be counted. And well, if what I talk about and if my example can help a few citizens become people once more, then that'll do me.
That's fantastic. So where can we find you, and obviously you've got, is it capillarywave.com, isn't it? That's
right. That's my website, Sandi. I'm on YouTube, Clive Edwards, Walking the Talk. If you search Clive Edwards on YouTube, you'll see a picture similar to this, sat in my studio, aka camper van. So, you'll find me on YouTube, and I'm not too hard to find.
No, I think that's brilliant. And what I love about you, Clive, is that you're actually very humble. It's all about, you're doing God's work. You're not doing, it's not about you. It's about something higher. And so, interesting.
That's very kind of you to say so, Sandi. It's not about me. Christ has done all the hard work. He's done it. He's done the hard work. All you have to do is follow him. Don't follow me. I'm infallible. He wasn't.
He wasn't. Brilliant. Well, listen, I just want to say thank you. I don't know whether there's anything else that you want to throw in. I think you've explained it brilliantly, but if there is something, say so now, because we've still got a couple of minutes if you want to.
No, I think we've covered it pretty well, Sandi. Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to come back and do a part 2 another time if your audience so desires. I'll be more than happy to do so.
Lovely. Well, bless you. Thanks so much, Clive. It's been absolutely fascinating speaking. I could talk to you for hours, actually.
Well, we can off camera if you like.
And I'm still working my way through your website, because there's a massive amount on that website to go through. And I would advise our viewers to go to capillarywave.com, look at it, and make your own minds up. And it certainly resonates with me. It may not with some. We're all different, but yeah. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Sandi. Likewise, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.